Hey, what's up guys? Tyler here with Secureteam. Before we get to the main topic of today's video, I've got to show you some amazing new photographs, up close, high-res images of the planet Jupiter. Now, if you haven't seen these yet, they are astonishing, astounding, amazing, and massive. And I do mean massive. And what you're seeing here is actually a computer rendition of these NASA images that was put together into a three-dimensional animation by a guy on Flickr who goes by the name of Sean Duran. So he's done an amazing job here. I'll put a link down below to his Flickr page. Go and check out his stuff. But he took these NASA images, and it's just a beautiful shot. It's almost as if you're sitting there flying in a spacecraft going over this massive planet, the biggest planet in our solar system, Jupiter. It's a gas giant that has a volume of around 1,000 trillion cubic miles, which basically means that it could fit around 1,300 Earths inside of it. And the highlight of these new images that have recently come out, courtesy of NASA's Juno spacecraft, who pretty soon is going to meet its fiery demise when it actually flies into the planet and destroys itself, was probably this photograph here, which is the closest ever shot of the mysterious and beautiful giant red dot on Jupiter, which, if you don't know, has been a feature on Jupiter since it was ever first detected by telescopes, and it's a massive swirling storm system that never seems to go away, never seems to leave. This thing just rages on and on throughout the years. And just to put the size of this into perspective, this red spot, or red dot, depending on who you ask, this massive storm is between 1 and 2 times as wide as Earth, so it would swallow Earth whole. And you're seeing a comparison here just to show you how big this thing is compared to Earth. And from what we can tell, this red spot has been on Jupiter for around 350 years, and is said to one day dissipate. But for now, it's as big as ever, it's as monumentally violent as ever. But to us, it's just a beautiful feature of this massive planet that has 10 times as much gravity as Earth does, and I'm extremely excited to see what the inside of Jupiter looks like once the Juno probe flies into its murky, gaseous atmosphere and disintegrates. So stay tuned for updates on that. Now to the main topic of today's video. In a recent article by ArsTechnica.com, a scrap dealer who is going through the belongings of a dead engineer found these massive Apollo-era NASA computers sitting in his basement. Add to that, they also found hundreds of these mystery tapes or reels, which is what they used back in the days of the Apollo program. These reels that they would put into these huge computers that carried the footage, whether it be from the moon landings or probes or instructional videos. And so I'll go through the images here as I'm talking to you, but basically the report goes on to state that a pair of Apollo-era NASA computers and hundreds of mysterious tape reels have been discovered in a deceased engineer's basement in Pittsburgh, according to a NASA Office of the Inspector General report released in a response to a Freedom of Information Act request. Now, most of the tapes were unmarked, but the majority of the rest appeared to, or at least according to NASA, contained instrumentation reels for the Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11 missions, which were NASA's flyby missions to Jupiter and Saturn back in the day. The two computers were so heavy that they would have needed a crane to be lifted out. And what we know so far, and there's some mysterious things the way NASA handled this, but we'll get to that in a minute. But what we know is that at some point in the 1970s, an IBM engineer working for NASA at the height of the space race took home the computers. We don't know why, but he took them home and the mysterious collection of tape reels. Now, the scrap dealer who was invited to clean out the deceased electronics-filled basement discovered the computers. The devices were clearly labeled NASA property, and so the dealer kind of freaked out and called NASA to report what he had found. And it said that he stated, quote, "Please tell NASA these items were not stolen," and that IBM was said to have been getting rid of some of the items, and so the engineer asked if he could take them home, and he was told that he could have them. Now, the name of the deceased engineer has been redacted from the Freedom of Information Act report. So this information wasn't just published by NASA and is only coming to light due to the Freedom of Information Act request, which we as the public have to file in order to get any sort of documentation that we're looking for. And we spoke about this in a more recent video. And so the scrap dealer called NASA, and even though NASA said that we don't want the machines, he said they're old, they're too heavy for us to lift, and that NASA told the family of the deceased that they are, quote, "not in the junk removal business," which in my opinion is kind of an a-hole thing to say to the family of this deceased engineer. So they didn't care about the computers, but they sure as hell sent a couple of NASA investigators out to the house to collect the mysterious tapes that would have been used in the computers. And so these, quote, NASA investigators went out to the home, picked up the 325 magnetic data tape reels on December 8th, 2015. It was said that the tapes were, quote, "in poor condition, and almost all were affected by moderate to severe mold." Now, what we know about these mysterious tapes is that most of them were not labeled. And according to NASA Goddard Archives, who examined the mystery tapes, the archivist report reads, and I quote, "The assessment of these tapes confirmed that most of the tapes were not labeled, and of the tapes that were, the content appeared to be space science related with missions including Pioneer and Helios. A final assessment of the tapes on April 3rd, 2016 further broke down the content of the tapes into the following, where they found that about 150 of the reels dealt with space-related instruction-type videos related to the Pioneer missions, but that 215 of these reels, and that according to NASA were, quote, "without mission-related identifying information," which in a nutshell basically means that 215 of these tapes had nothing to do with the Pioneer missions, and the content on them, the video on them, NASA is holding the secret to. But here's where it gets stranger, because as I said earlier, they allowed them to keep the computers, acting as if they were junk, but they were in a big hurry to pick up those reels. And the archivist's final recommendation was, you guessed it, to have the tapes destroyed. He went on to say, quote, "There is no evidence that suggests this material is historically significant. I recommend disposal through the immediate destruction of all magnetic tapes." So the news article finishes by saying, quote, "After all of the investigation, one final mystery remained unsolved. The NASA computers are labeled with a contact number reading NA552154. And it was said that NASA was unable to find any records of any such contact. So the people behind this article contacted NASA further to try to get any additional info, but a spokesperson said that they have no further comment beyond the results of the Freedom of Information Act request, which in layman's terms is, we're not telling you anything else. So yeah, there you have it. We know that these old NASA computers were taken home, and that these over 300 mystery tape reels were discovered. That apparently NASA was very serious about getting back and destroying as soon as possible. And it kind of really makes you wonder what was on those tapes, that they would leave the computers and call them junk, and yet confiscate the tapes and order their, quote, "immediate destruction." So, maybe you guys can tell me your theories, your opinions. Is there something on there, some sort of footage from space or the moon maybe that they didn't want us to see? Who knows? Well, NASA knows, but they're not telling. So with that, give me your thoughts down in the comments, and let me know what you think about everything we've spoken about today. So be sure to stay tuned. I want to thank you all for stopping by today. Like and share this video if you appreciate the work I'm doing, and stay tuned because I've got a lot more coming, and I will see you all back in just a bit. Stay safe, guys.